there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. Let's see, I understand the challenges will be frustrating for your staff and employees, even more than they are for the parents. However, the children will suffer the most. Not at first, but over time. But not much time. It'll happen quickly. As children will be socially conditioned, as they have over history. You will see them as these resilient children who are adjusting to this new way of life. It's amazing, I'm sure, after the few weeks you've started, how fast their minds and bodily behaviors fell in line, literally, in line, spaced 3 to 5 feet apart. It's almost as if they are little oiled machines. That's a greater plan behind the social experiment, but we won't get into that today. I want to touch base just a little bit on the things we already know about this survival rate of COVID at 99.8%. If the virus is so deadly, you should have waste hazard bins and disposals, masks everywhere, but we don't. The schools need to be requiring kids to wash their hands. It's not even on the morning call to have kids wash their hands before when you come in from outside or even before you eat. And we know that's a quick way to spread the disease. So I'm calling in and asking that you guys start to require the children to wash their hands. I think the teachers can take on that responsibility. Also want to talk about the psychological effects of extended mask wearing. Forcing masks on children can weaken their immune system. Exposure to nature, benign viruses and germs help build a robust immune system. If they lack exposure to these microbes, it can and will lead to overwhelming and serious consequences to their health due to having a weak defense against a minor illness. We might be setting our children up for a future disaster when they emerge from social restrictions fully without masks, then to be at the mercy of normally benign opportunist infections with a now weakened immune system. I encourage all of you to consider this data that has already been compiled for you. This is a PERT document from the PERT group about long-term face mask wearing and harm, and I will be emailing it to all of you for review. I ask that you allow these children some breathing room, at least at recess. DOH K-12 does not even require kids to wear masks at all. I hope you guys are aware of that. I imagine you have to be aware of that. Please allow them some space to take their masks off. If you can sit at your desks without people in the room and take your masks off, so should the children have some breathing room. I'll leave you with a couple quotes. If you stand for nothing, you will surely fall for everything. Fear, the acronym, is false evidence of feeling real. A leader takes people where they want to go, but a great leader takes children where they should be. And this is the government our founding fathers want us about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Rick Slaughter.
As you guys know, I'm running for school board, and you guys are not met me. You guys are my friends. You guys are my people that live in town. But there is a lot of problems here. Parents have lost respect in the school system. It's kind of hypocritical. We're sitting here pledging allegiance to the flag, but multiple classrooms aren't doing it. I actually have a report from a parent who said her daughter said, "Why are we not saying the Pledge of Allegiance?" She went and asked the front office lady, and she said, "It's not a good idea to do it these times." What does that mean? Are we supposed to be ashamed? Are we supposed to hide the flag? Because that's what's happening in a lot of places. I'm talking to a lot of parents, and the majority of the parents in this town, the real majority of the parents in this town, have been reaching out to me. First day of school, multiple teachers throughout this district forced students to state their name and their preferred pronouns. About a dozen of the reports I got. A few of these students literally had no idea what that meant. Maybe they work on a farm on the outskirts of town. Maybe their parents don't let them watch TV or have social media. It made her daughter feel awkward. And especially in front of her peers on the first day of school. When you don't know what that means, and what is she going to do? Talk back to the teacher? No, because she's taught how to respect adults and respect her teacher. That's a predicament you should ever put a child in. All this new stuff, this new agenda, it needs to stop. I don't care if it's 1985, 95, 2005, go to any other curriculum that we've ever had before 5 years ago when all this woke garbage came in here and get it out. It can stay in Seattle, that's fine. That's diversity. Have a district where they're going to do all that stuff. But Orting, no. This is a conservative town in a conservative district in a conservative county. I'm just sick of it. the disciplinary action threat if they didn't give up their pronouns. Are you kidding me? And I'm with some of you guys on Zoom meetings. I see you guys put the he, she, him. This girl is a pretty young girl. She needs to state her name and her name only. And that's the way it's been since the beginning of time. That's how it was when we were in school. And that's all the parents are wanting, is to go back to that day. These kids are already under a ton of pressure. Same pressure we are. Depression, anxiety, and all those things. Same with COVID. If your mom and dad have anxiety and depression and don't know what the heck they're going to do, what do you think the kids are thinking? Their foundation is all rocky right now. The last thing they need is to be asked what their pronouns are on the first day of school in front of a bunch of other students. It's not okay. I have another report of a transgender girl who pretends to be a boy who's changing in the boys' locker room. That was confirmed by 2 students. And I'm not going to confirm the year here, but this is probably going to be a report. Within the last 2 years, there was a girl, or there was a boy who went to a camp and stayed in the cabin where everybody else was of the opposite sex, and the person that was the chaperone knew it, and everybody joked about it. And that child stayed in that cabin. It's not saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm just appalled. Hiding flags. You guys know this is happening everywhere. You guys are on the internet. Highline School, south of Seattle, holding race symposiums where staff express their displeasure for being privileged and white and pass this along to the students. Timberland High School, social studies teacher portrays Republicans as uneducated, bigoted warmongers. This is happening everywhere and needs to stop. New York Post article. Racial equity team pushing critical race theory for kids. It needs to stop.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Ronnie. And that's it for community speakers today, but I believe Bonnie has some submissions that we received prior to the meeting.
So this first submission is from a Brett Hancock, and I will just read what he wrote in his email. As a resident of Orting since September 2020 with 5 kids in the district, my heart and thoughts go out to all teachers, educators, and staff at the school district and schools in Orting. You have all been a beacon of light in this town by creating an inclusive learning environment and not succumbing to the disingenuous fear campaign being promoted by far, far too many. I am saddened and appalled every day as the number of anti-mask, anti-vaccine, and anti-science carnival barkers in the city, from elected officials to citizens, who choose to spend their time harassing those who simply want to send their children to schools as safely as possible. Thank you for your time. The next one is from Michelle Batson, and she writes, my daughter, who's an 8th grader, we have concerns with time allowance for lunch. It is exceedingly short, especially if hot lunch is needed. I am unable to attend the meeting tonight. I have patients scheduled and cannot reschedule at this late notice, as I just learned of this opportunity to voice concerns. I would like another avenue to provide concerns and request assistance. The minimum break requirement for any and all employees in Washington State is 30 minutes, allowing 15 minutes to both fire and eat their lunch in half of the minimum time required of employers. My daughter is one of many who is going without lunch consistently, which affects their ability to concentrate through the remaining classes. We tried packing lunch, but even then, by the time they line up outside, move to the assigned seat, which cannot be changed, and open the lunch, they have no time to eat anything before having to return to classes. We parents who have discussed on Facebook community pages have expected that by now this would be noted and addressed by teachers and support staff. This really is inappropriate and does not allow our students to be ready for learning. And the last one, my daughter is in 8th grade. We have issues and concerns with the lunch timing. For 15 minutes of her lunchtime, she is forced to stay outside and wait with many other students before entering the lunchroom. She and the other students have 15 minutes to stand in line for the hot lunch the school is providing, get her food, walk to her assigned seat, eat her lunch, and then return to class on time, 15 minutes. Please explain how this is even acceptable. She has expressed her opinions and concerns to Mr. Collins along with teachers and other staff members. Their solution at this time is to delay to the next class. How is this right? My student has to be late to her class just so she can eat her lunch, which is the first wave of lunch students will never, the first wave of lunch students will never be late because they are rushed through the first 15 minutes of lunchtime. My daughter is coming to the point where she doesn't want to eat lunch altogether because she doesn't want to be late or be in trouble for being late. If she does get through the hot lunch, she throws more than half away just so she won't be late. All of this is unacceptable. 30 minutes is lunch, not 15. Take a few days, walk the walk our kids are doing. Let them show you how little time 15 minutes is to eat lunch, because apparently whoever decided this was a good idea. Splitting the lunch times has never walked it from the beginning of the 30 minutes all the way through the late walk to their next class. I encourage you to do this. I'm highly confident that all staff members have their 30 minutes of lunchtime by the kids. My student is coming home hungry almost daily. She takes snacks, and whenever possible, she does try to bring a lunch so in hopes that she can eat fast enough to get to class on time, but that is not always possible. Please, this needs to change. I haven't met one parent who is okay with the situation for their students or the solution they have in place right now. I've also asked my daughter to make sure she writes down all information that she can regarding the times during her lunch, meaning exactly what time she walked through the door, what time she stood in line, what time she sat at her assigned seat, and how late she was to her class. This is still a work in progress, and hopefully by Friday, she will have some good information that I will continue to share and mark down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bonnie. We can't respond to all the comments at this time, but I do just want to thank the staff and community for sharing their feedback with us. It's appreciated by all board members. All right. So now we're going to start with the introduction of the new staff member. Community and staff comments, and that's all that we have.
Okay, thanks.
Board organization is next.
Sorry.
First, we're going to do introduction of new staff and junior student board representatives.
And I'm going to start us off by introducing Miss Grace Smith. She's our junior board representative joining us tonight. She is joining Nadine Brandt and So Grace is on our ASBA Executive Council. She's the Vice President of the Future Business Leaders for America and captain of the cross-country team. She also plays fast pitch. When she's not in school, she's a competitive equestrian and has 2 Arabian horses, competes and shows at a national level, and is the national president of the Arabian Horse Youth Association. Following high school, she plans to attend a 4-year university and obtain a degree in education, where she's hoping to follow in the footsteps of some family members. Her mother's a high school counselor, and she's aspiring to be a teacher, and specifically a science teacher. So I was sharing with her, with all due luck, by the time she maybe graduates, she can come back to a brand new Orting High School and help to teach in a new facility someday down the road. So again, welcome Grace. We're happy to have you to be a part of the board. Also, I have a couple of staff members under my purview that I'm happy to introduce. We have Mr. Rashad O'Neill. Rashad is our new Public Information Officer. Rashad is coming to us from the Clover Park School District. He has about 7 years in our state and in Oregon as Public Information Officer experience. He's also worked in news media. And we are very excited to have him on board. We've already seen some different videos and communication come online. And we're just super happy to have him here. He's running the show solo tonight. So hope everything's going well in the back of the room. Also, Mr. Aaron Lee. We mentioned him last month, but introducing new staff. Aaron has come back to the Orting School District. He previously was a principal here, an assistant principal here, executive director here, and coming back as our director of equity and student outcomes. So he's helping to champion not only our core work around strategic planning and missioning, but helping to ensure that as part of his role in state assessment, that each of our children are able to achieve at their various highest potential. So welcome back, Mr. Lee. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Debbie Christensen, HR Director, and she's going to help us facilitate the rest of our staff here as we introduce about a third of our folks today.
Yes, thank you, and hello, for the record. I'd like to first introduce to you Cassie Cornelius, if she would stand up. Cassie is, and I feel like I'm standing in front of you, so I'm going to move over. Cassie is our Nutrition Services Supervisor. She joined She's very familiar with the school district environment, and what I appreciate most in both, when I met her at first and now working with her directly, is she is a solution-oriented person. Every single day, Cassie is coming to me with things that can make our efficiencies better and really working through all of the things such as the food supply shortage and all of that. She's just on it. So Cassie, we're thrilled to have you here, and thanks for being here tonight. Thank you. Next, I know Steve Steve Rabb, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, has a new employee in
Technology, right?
technology. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Wayne Parr. Stand up there, young man. So Wayne has joined us just recently, as of September 30th, I think it was. And he's actually coming in on the technology side specifically to support our CTE work. So we're really looking forward to having his influence in both our secondary schools. On the technology side, I think that's going to help us move our program forward quite a bit. He's been in our tech department pretty much since then and learning the ropes and getting around. And so, I don't know, we may not even let go. We may just keep him right there and keep him busy. So, welcome, Wayne.
Okay, and next we have Myra Andrews, who is our payroll manager. She is going to introduce her newest staff member.
Hi, I'm Myra Andrews, like she said, payroll manager, and we have Tracy Bridger joining our payroll team. I know my supervisor, Marcy Bell, and myself are excited because we can breathe just a little bit better. So Tracy, she's been a district-wide sub for a while in Orting, so we was able to snag her up and have her come over and help out in payroll. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. And next, I know Curtis Nybo, our facilities supervisor, has a couple of new hires in the facilities department.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Steve Perez. He just started this week, Monday. He's in the shading grounds position. Stephen lives in Graham with his wife and enjoys camping on his time off. Then we have Andrew Milo. Andrew became a full-time custodian this year. Andrew has subbed for the district for the last 5 years during the summer and on call. Andrew lives in Orting, is married with 3 kids. He enjoys hiking, camping on his time off.
Thank you.
Also, Megan Gentili from Transportation sent her regrets. She wasn't able to be here this evening. And also Lonnie Storm, the new assistant supervisor in transportation, who she would have normally introduced, had an obligation with her family this evening. So they were not able to make it. And Cliff Freeze is here tonight, principal with Orting High School, and he has maybe his Orting High School new staff wants to stand up. So there you go, behind you.
Yes, these are 2 of our hires. First, I'd like to introduce Long Jung. We actually sold him from the University of Washington, believe it or not, where he was a professor, I think, for B&T. Yes, he's also been a graduate assistant with video production, which is the primary place that we've placed him to start a brand new program, which is not easy to do, a program that has never existed. So he's now in the middle of getting new cameras. I saw kids carrying a drone today, I believe.
Yeah.
A bunch of really amazing things. So we're really excited for the work he's going to do to really showcase our students and showcase their abilities, and just can't wait. He's also, I believe he won't tell you, but I know inside this interview we found out he's won some awards for some of his filmmaking in his past, so we're excited to see that for our earning students. So, Long, welcome to the district. And next up, we have Ginger Burton. Ginger is going to be joining us as a special education parent in support of in the Janet environment for our students that we're pushing out. She's supporting those students. She's just been here, this is just over a week, in her 2nd week. So we're super excited to have her. A little secret about her is she has ran booster clubs, and we're constantly looking for people to work at athletic events. Turns out to be one of her little hobbies. She loves to be a part of all things in our community. So as a community member and an educator, I'm super excited for her to have that passion. So Ginger, welcome to our district.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anybody here that's a new hire that we have not yet introduced? Okay. So in closing, what I'd like to start with people and directors and superintendent possibly would, is that we hired nearly 40 employees at the point that we put together our document. We are over 40 employees at this time. We recently hired some new monitors as well as our paraeducators. We had so many people and wanted to keep everyone safe and honor the social distancing. So we have invited people to come over the September, October, and November board meetings. So you'll get to meet the rest of our team in October and November. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for being here. For our leaders and new employees, at this time, you're not required or asked to stay. You're more than welcome to, but yeah, and I see a few of my. Mr. Nybo, if you don't mind, please, we have a special request for you to stick around for a moment. There is an announcement that Director Madigan would love to share. But thank you, everybody, new employees and supervisors. We appreciate you coming.
It's a good question. Never know.
Okay, so Curtis, I have to tell you, in the CPAC committee meetings and all the different meetings we've had about facilities, what we've heard over and over again is the stewardship of the maintenance custodians for what we do have. And so I wanted to, as my board recognition, I wanted to make sure I gave you a shout out while you were here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So that was why I asked you to stay.
Thanks, Curtis.
We're kicking off our board recognition section.
I have another one.
Please continue.
And this is Chris Willis and Megan and their staff. I have to tell you, I hear a lot of stories about the bus garage. And Jerry once said to me, well, they're all our kids. He's a bus driver. And they act that way from helping to locate lost students multiple times. And there's also, I've been hearing about, the bus drivers also know about the IHPs, which is individual health plans that teachers get. I didn't realize until now that the bus drivers also get that. And I was so impressed with the detail. I mean, like that a child is in the assigned seat so they can always be visible to the adult with them. I mean, the detail and follow through showed real dedication and care for the students, and I was really impressed. So thank you to you for having such a great staff. Thanks. That was it for me.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that really stood out to me this past couple of weeks was a video that was put together by Rashad on UPIO. And having been somewhere where you remember what happened on 9/11, and the video that Rashad put together was so professional and so heartfelt, and it was wonderful to see our staff, the connection of a student and a teacher who is now a teacher. It just did a wonderful job with that. It was a great memorial, a great testimony to have our staff, and it was just so well done. And all the other communications that are going out are looking fabulous, and they're there, they're meaningful, and I just so appreciate that. I just wanted to give an applause there for that work that you're doing. I love it, and looking forward to the continued things that you do. So I just wanted to show appreciation. And then secondly, those who might know me personally, I'm pretty quiet. I'm very reserved in my neighborhood. I am the lady in the greenhouse with the golden retriever. But as I was preparing to come tonight, I heard a little boy across the street, so excited. Love this teacher. Really happy to be back with his friends. And I just want to say to all the teachers and staff out there, thank you for being those adult people that these kids love to be around. That's it for me.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Let me just start off by saying I'm so excited to see real faces instead of circles on the screen. This is so lovely. So school started back up. Kids are so excited to be back. And they're so excited that we're allowed to hold sports events and have after-school activities. It's going great. Kids are so happy to be back. And I talked to some of the freshmen. They seem to be settling in pretty well, getting a good feel for high school, so that's going well. We're having the school play and auditions start on Tuesday, and there seems to be a lot of kids interested in that, so that's exciting. National Honor Society had their first meeting of the year this Wednesday, and we have lots of awesome community service projects planned out throughout the year. STEM, Students Helping Students, other clubs are starting to have meetings, coming back. And it was briefly mentioned earlier about the lunch shortages, and I personally have their lunch, so I see some of the kids dealing with the lunch shortages. So it should potentially be put on the table to bring back the lunch surveys that we did last year, maybe have first period teachers tell their kids to do that if they plan on having a lunch throughout the week, fill that out, so maybe that will combat the problem. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Vivi. Okay, Brenda, introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, she covered a lot of it, but I know for sports we're all doing pretty well. Like there's a decent amount of people showing up for a lot of sports. I know personally for cross country, we have one of the bigger turnouts we've ever had. I was going to talk about the play. I know there's a new club starting up called FFA, and I'm actually pretty excited about that with our new teacher, Miss Gum. But she seems super nice, and I'm actually pretty excited about that. There's a new sport. It's like competitive gaming. I think I'm saying that right. And that should be fun. I have some notes. For homecoming, since we're struggling with COVID and having not being able to dance, we're working on activities that will be COVID safe and that kind of thing. But we're going to do our best to get all the activities that are as safely as possible, but to bring some more like spirit back to school. Because I know like I personally miss like spirit days and being with my friends and just the whole atmosphere of school. And yeah, getting all the clubs up and running, and I'm excited to be back in school. And I'm excited to be here. This is really fun. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just had a couple things. One, I absolutely loved the energy and spirit, both at the football game the other night and the volleyball game last night. It was so much fun. It was awesome to see not just our players getting into their all, but the stands full of more students and more community members and all the folks like me who don't have kids playing anymore but still love to be there. So I just want to thank the staff and everyone for following the protocols and doing what they can so that our kids can have that experience. And then I also, again, I just really want to keep elevating the work of the CPAC committee, the Facility Advisory Committee, and the community members and staff who are part of that group, and all the variables that are being considered to help us work through the growth that we have in our community, and not just the needs of our students as we know it, but the future needs and the innovative ideas our staff has to serve our kids, and we're going to want to accommodate that. And so just that work is so important. So community, if you're listening, check out that page on our website that shares the information that we're looking at and talking through. And please kind of stay up to speed. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. So that's for recognition for me. At that point, Ed, it's your turn. Superintendent report.
Wonderful. I do have a report for you tonight. We're going to call up a few slides up on the screen just to share last together, we discussed a supply drive that was about to happen on Saturday the 14th, and I'm happy to say that we had over 140 families served with school supplies. So just a little bit of teaser right there, photos of what that looked like, not only organizing, but having those ready to go. It was a drive-through event, and it went very, very well. We had a kickoff shortly thereafter. We had a national speaker, George Carls, came and talked about the innovator's mindset and shared different characteristics of what does that look like through the lens of student voice, choice, building relationships. Having a professional speaker like that not only gets you laughing and entertained, but crying, and you get some nudges along the way as you hold up the mirror and say, what can I do differently to help each of our students be successful? We got to hear from our students, our drumline, and our cheerleaders as well that day. So that's a continuing thing that we're going to keep alive. Each of our staffs in some form or another discuss things like empowerment as a core focus. Again, voice, choice, having time for students to reflect and dig deeper on problem finding and solutioning about things that they're interested in, things they'd like to know more about. So I do think we're going to see many of those ideas surface in our strategic planning. We, midway through the day, invited everybody back for some barbecue beans, some brats, and some pork spare ribs, and that was just a wonderful opportunity to have us all back together and celebrate the great work that everybody was doing. Shortly after that, right before the start of the school year, we had the most students I've ever seen come back for an orientation day. And that was primarily due to the transportation department partnership that we had. We had over 200 middle school and 200 high school students attend the new student orientation on the 29th. So as we continue to find ways to promote social, emotional development and support, we know that anxiety of returning to school and being somewhere new can be stressful. So we partnered up students with staff and other students, give tours and connect with one another and really begin those relationships so we can start on a strong foot. Of course, the first day of school was a huge celebration. You saw first day of school photos. That was Rashad's first day. It was our first day of school. So we were trying to get those photos out there and pictures of what that looked like and sound like. And after 18 months, it was just a huge celebration to get everybody back together under the same roof. Looking at enrollment, you see some different capacities as I shared on an update. We were a little over 2,600 students head count. So we got over the number budgeted. But as we think about facilities, we can see what does that look like from a capacity lens. So just for instance, I don't know why that's skewing a little bit difficult, but I'll read. Orting Primary was built permanent capacity for 288 students, and they started the year with 469. So we're 63% over the permanent capacity. Ptarmigan Ridge was built for 431. We're starting the year with about 614, so they're 43% over capacity. Orting Middle was built for 689 students, and they're starting with 649, so they're 7% away from being at capacity. Orting High School was built for 640 permanent capacity, and they're starting the year at 832. I think that's the biggest they've ever been, so they're also about 30% over capacity. So as we think about our Citizens Facility Advisory Committee, or CFAC, we do have a few meetings left, and again, their charge from you as the Board of Directors is to review all the considerations that factor into what should we do about where we're at today. So they'll be reviewing our enrollment projections, estimates around assessed valuation, thinking about our current facility condition, and we have 3 more meetings, one on the 28th of September, October 12th, and October 26th, and we're going to consider not only the tour, the present condition, we're going to look at our land acquisition and what we currently have in our inventory, and starting on that 12th, we're going to help work on a process so that committee can make a recommendation to you. So we anticipate on the 26th, we would see a draft of a report of a final recommendation representing the committee's thoughts. And that should pave the way for you as a board to help us decide where we go next in light of all of that information. We want to make sure we're continuing to get feedback from our community and our stakeholders. So one of the pieces that Mr. O'Neill and myself are working on is trying to capture that community, staff, student voice and interest about where they like to see the district go. So we will continue to work on survey information and make sure that we can get out there with our students and find out what is working, what do they like to see, where they think our successes are, as well as work with our staff and our community to figure out what do they want to see and know more about from the district and how do we partner with them in that regard. So we'll see surveys come out not only starting tomorrow, but over the next couple of weeks, just to continue to get that information and feedback to help us move forward. Thinking about safety and health, since the last time we were together, we have had some new updates to the mandates, which is not a surprise. Since we were last together, outdoor face coverings are required for outdoor events with over 500 persons. So some of that might look like us making that move preemptive. So for instance, as we try to gauge attendance at White River this Friday, if we really thought we were over capacity, we'd be likely to make that announcement ahead of time. And or, and let's just say soccer, for instance, we didn't anticipate that capacity. We might start without face coverings required, but when we got to that appropriate number, the 500 mark, we would begin to make announcements. So as we try to work our way through procedures, we know that those are a couple different ways that might look like. We did have a vaccination clinic on September 18th, and we had over 40, I think it was 47 individuals vaccinated. And that was open to anybody who would want one, could be a student, staff, community member. And that was just that partnership with Tacoma Pierce County Health Department to make sure we provided space to help in their efforts to provide that and make that accessible to the public. We do have that deadline or time frame around October 18th, and that is something that we are working to make sure all of our employees understand the parameters and options available, whether that's get a vaccination or pursue a medical exemption or a religious exemption. So you're going to see continued district visibility and support and communication in that regard to make sure employees understand what that looks like and make sure they have support along the way as they work through that process. And we also have return to school testing. That's new, and Director Willis has been working with our health room staff, our leaders, to make sure people know what that looks like and sounds like. And the short version is, if you are in close contact, there's a 14-day quarantine period. You can return sooner than that on the 8th day if you have a negative COVID test. So we're making sure that we not only have those in our inventory, he's been working on FAQs so parents and students know the process of ways to submit that. And over time, I'll say over the next few weeks, we're going to see an onset of a program around Test to Stay, which is a little bit of a different modality of how we can get students in close contact to return even sooner, or staff for that matter. And so that was just announced the day before, so it's going to take us a few weeks to internalize that, build systems around it. And as you probably know, our staff are working overtime in all things related to COVID and close contact and many late hours. So part of our interest, and HR will be meeting with each of our staffs, is to look through that balance around support. What do you need? How can we help? And we want to make sure that we're getting the right supports in the right places, because we know once you get stretched too thin, we're not able to do the big work that we're really asked to do. We wear people out in the process, and one of the best things we can do to recruit and retain is to take care of the amazing people that we have. So you'll see that as a continued focus, and that's about it for my report. The one thing I will add, we do know that as we start school, there are some hiccups. We've been working on our procedures around pickup and drop-off and trying to reduce the snarl. With regard to lunches, there's several issues that are happening with regard to the lunches. We're seeing supply side shortages with availability of food, so that's been a challenge. We have challenges with more students accessing meals because they're free this year to all families. So we're a little caught off guard with the numbers accessing that. Cassie and her team have been really working hard to provide scratch-based cooking and choice. Choice can slow down the meal delivery time frame. So we're looking at not only increasing our staffing, but different modalities to make sure we can get through those lunch times sooner. The district and our staff certainly have no interest in having no time for students to eat. We want that time. We know they need that time, and we want to provide fresh quality meal choices. And so that's something we're going to continue to champion over the next couple of weeks as we continue to improve those procedures. So we know as we start, this is our first full week of all students under the same roof for 18 months. So we're not really surprised if there's some hiccups, but we do have a strong interest, like our parents and students do, in making some improvements in the near term. So look for continued updates in that regard. And that's all I have.
I wanted to thank you. I didn't realize we provided transportation for the 6th and 9th grade those days. That's wonderful, because then the kids can get there whether the parents are available or not. So that was a great addition. Great addition.
It's good to say something about that orientation. I know at the high school level, it was a really big success. Like, I worked as one of the leaders that people around and did some of the fun stuff, and I thought it was a pretty big success. There was a lot of people there.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I think Orting, with the close contact with students, I
I have a posted to ask you that next week.
I already did that, so that's a good question.
That's a good question. In a general case, what we discussed as a leadership team is trying to continue to use some of those protocols like Google Classroom and others that maintain that collaboration, so that if I'm not able to attend school, or if for some reason we had to push to remote, that we have that continuity and ability to push material out remotely. So I couldn't answer specifically how many are using that or where that's at, but our conception as a leadership team is probably the best way with the amount and frequency, because sometimes you're not going to know till 9 o'clock the night before that you're going to get the call, right? So we want to continue to press around that online modality as a vehicle around communication and around continuing learning. So I would say that's the primary strategy, and then outside of that is just checking in with school, peers, teachers, and make sure we push that work out. But we know a lot of that work is collaborative, in person and together, and so some of that is a little bit hard to make up if you're not in person, and so some of that we have to work when students do return. We do think that the test returns sooner, as well as the eventual test to stay, will significantly mitigate or help us improve. But those things I just said, those are going to have to be important mainstays, because we know there will be students that will get sick and won't be able to be here. And so that idea of Google Classroom, or that ability to remotely check in, that's going to be a continuing need for us down the road.
I like the idea of also help afterwards, because if they're really sick, they're not going to be doing Google Classroom.
That's, yes.
So we need to help them afterwards too.
Thank you. So moving on, we've got financial report next. Expertly prepared by Marcy.
Our
Thank
favorite
you.
experts.
Were there any questions? Wonderful, thank you, Marcy. Thank you. And now moving on to the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, board policies. And there is a thumbs up. So this is the first read of some of our board policies, and there were a number of them here, and some excellent questions sent in advance of the meeting. So I just want to see if there's anything in addition that we need to follow up on.
I kind of took your lead and kind of the comment that you made at the last board meeting, kind of asking us to really pay attention and look for equitable access kind of thing. So, full disclosure, sometimes I look at these and I'm like, oh, that looks good. I'm actually really trying to dig in. So I haven't made it very far. So the questions that I submitted were the ones that to the point where I got through, I'm not even sure where I left off. So, and I truly, truly appreciate Bonnie and Steve for getting my questions answered before the meeting tonight. I thought, because I didn't provide them until like late last night sometimes. So, thank you for getting those questions of mine kind of addressed. I would like to just kind of see these come back until at least one of us has had an opportunity to go through. I'm not sure where anybody else is as far as going through these. But I think it's really important that as we are going through all of these changes and really making a focus on equity, that we are paying attention to our policies and making sure that they are exactly what we want the staff, the expectations, and then also making sure that our students have that equitable access. So that's kind of really in the long, and I just want to see them back again until we're able to really get through them. And I don't know what kind of time frame we have to actually just review and then vote them on as good.
Well, we can review, these are first reads, so we have some more time to take a look at them and then you can back to staff.
Yeah, because the one thing that I did want to say is that when I'm reading them, a lot of the times I have a pretty good gauge of whether that's feasible for teachers, but there's a whole lot of them out in flip-flops. There's a whole lot of them that I don't really know. I was thinking that we should make sure that we have principals read some of these, because I don't know how doable or how much it takes care of their needs. So, you know, I really would encourage that we find a way to help our employees that are affected, have some kind of look at it to see, you know, what's needed, what isn't needed. Because some of the things about, that had to do with, you know, the principals and the training and all that, I thought, I don't know if that's doable, or if they need more, or something else added to that. So I really think it would be valuable to get some employee input too. I mean, besides the cabinet, you know, the people that are affected. Like when we heard, Jody Coleman and Marty talk about the coaching, you know, some of those things you just don't know.
I believe that's part of the process, if I understand correctly, that before it comes to the board, staff has had an opportunity to provide input and guidance. But the example of the athletic one that we did, because we kept debating it, I couldn't get, that one was on me, it's like I wanted that change and I wanted to understand from the coach's perspective on how it would work in real world. So we have an opportunity to ask for that input, I believe, but I think in the process, the staff does get a chance to weigh in before it comes to us for review.
So to that end, when we're specifically talking about the policy where in regards to, so many pages, graduation.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah. And we have that yellow highlighted area, that basically is challenging us to make sure that the conditions to participate are inclusive. I would like to specifically maybe ask to have further conversation, with you, Ed, and whomever, to really kind of get that one much like that.
And just to be, just so we have a document number you're referring to,
It is 2410P.
yes, okay, but I have to. We can talk further about that. Okay. And then, I have one question for staff on the training development for board members. Kind of minor in the scope of all the other policies, but the requirement for governance training for board directors during each of their terms. My understanding is that was covered in the Walter Boot Camp training, and I didn't want to add potentially additional cost on top of that training. So if there's any information on what would be included in that governance training before we agree to include it in our policy, that would be awesome.
so does that include also the tests that we had to take online?
This is something new.
Oh, this is in addition to.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
before we adopted this policy, I want to make sure we actually do want to do it, and that is providing something different than what we already received as board member training.
Yes, I'm happy to do some additional research on that.
Thank you.
It was my understanding at the last annual conference that during board boot camp that it would be offered, as well as the director meetings. There are other various school districts. But to date, I haven't seen those set up yet, so I will need to research.
Okay.
So then even if you have been to boot camp before, you will need to attend it again because there's an addition. Okay, that part I did not understand already.
As long as we're all receiving, just my own opinion, as long as we're receiving the training during boot camp, I would rather focus on the business of students and not
Right.
more training unless things change.
Right.
Yeah. Just my personal opinion there. Any other feedback on the policies or procedures before we go on?
So George, if you could only have some clarification, is this coming back for first reading at the October board work session, or should I push them all through to second reading for possible adoption?
Was there more?
I personally haven't made it through the entire list. I don't know where everybody else is.
Can we report back to you, Bonnie, on which ones are ready for second read and which ones we'd like to push forward as first read? So that's an assignment for all of us to respond on where we're at.
I finished 10 minutes before.
Same so much. I've gotten through all of them except for the graduation requirements, actually. I need to read that. I can read the teacher one, but I haven't read. Okay, thanks, guys. So that's our homework, we will on. All right, consent agenda. Entertain motion.
Motion to approve items 1 through 7 on the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And then we've got a few action items for tonight's meeting. This one is prepared by Mr. Rad, Director Rad. Minimum basic education requirements. Prepared by, so I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minimum basic education requirement compliance for 21-22.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, surplus approval, this is one of my favorite. This is when you let go of things so they can make someone else happy.
I will motion to approve the disposal of surplus items as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Marcy, for preparing that report.
Employees of detail.
Yes. So, and now we have our draft of the 2021-2022 fee schedule and meal pricing adjustment.
Is it not prepared by?
It is prepared by.
Okay.
It is prepared by.
I move to approve the 2021-2022 fee schedule and meal pricing adjustment.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So this next section, this is normally where we do our student representative reports, but you both shared earlier in the meeting, so I just wanted to check in with you, is there anything you wanted to add? This is kind of your section where you're all good? Yeah. Wonderful. It's your first meeting, so we're getting used to the flow of things, so that's good. Not your first, but
First and first.
first in person, right? That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So then I will open for board comments.
I just kind of wanted to say thank you to both of our representatives for being here, and I know that there was a little confusion with the kind of layout. We have added this board recognition section, just because it's really good to be back face to face and seeing actual real people instead of screens. So there was a little confusion, and it wasn't you guys, I just wanted to make sure. So that's just kind of it, and as always, thank you to everybody.
I wanted to reiterate something that you said earlier, and that is the CPAC committee. Now, I'm looking at Marcy and Aaron and Ed and and you two have been on a lot of different long-term planning committees. And I have to say, I have more information and more different viewpoints to help us move forward than I've ever had on any of them. And I really appreciate it because I think we can really make a plan, not just a decision, but we can really make a plan, and that this one is, the feeling is really different, and I want to say thank you.
Having no further comments, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:59.
Back at me.